Nancy Drew games. There are a lot of them. 33, in fact. Almost 34. And while these games seem to have covered every topic under the sun, I am going to argue that there are still some concepts, ideas, locations that they still have not touched upon. So yes, today I'm going to be discussing a very fun topic, which is my ideas for potential Nancy Drew games. For interactive, feel free to use any of these ideas, as long as I can be a character in the game. I'm sure if all of you are anything like me, you've got your own personal, passionate concepts for potential Nancy Drew games, so feel free to pop them in the comments and we can all tell each other how great our ideas are. My very first concept is one that I am honestly shocked has not been the topic of a Nancy Drew game yet, and that is a mystery set on a cruise ship. How fun would that be? It is the perfect isolated location for a mystery, which is ideal for the Nancy Drew games which only have limited locations. And in my ideal vision of a cruise ship Nancy Drew game, the crime would be a murder for maximum drama. What can I say? I just love a good murder. I want more murders in Nancy Drew games, please. And I think to make it even more fun, it could potentially be a themed cruise, just to add like another layer of camp, of fun. I'm really, surprised there hasn't been a Nancy game set on a cruise ship yet. It feels made for it. Like, we've covered the other coolest form of transportation, a train. So a boat needs to happen. I think it would be really cool if in like the last quarter of the game you like arrive at the destination, wherever that may be. There's so many cool places a cruise ship could travel. But the last quarter of the game could be you arriving in that new location and wandering around on land, like a whole new set of places to discover in the last quarter. I think that would be so exciting. Like, it would just feel like a total bonus. Maybe her interactive are just afraid, because Barbie did it 24 years ago, and they just know they can't improve upon Detective Barbie the Mystery Cruise. Probably the finest piece of video game art of all time, but I still like to see them try. You know, another one of my favorite point-and-click games set on a boat is Titanic Adventure Out of Time. It would be cool. Maybe Nancy is on like a themed cruise that is themed around the Titanic, and they're doing like a recreation of the Titanic journey, and they've rebuilt the Titanic. It's poised for tragedy, and you've got inbuilt drama right there. Nancy has to prevent the Titanic from sinking again, from history repeating itself. And the Nancy Drew games love history, so therefore the Nancy Drew fans love history. And do you know a history girly out there who is not obsessed with the Titanic? 'Cause I don't. You know, men have the Roman Empire, we have the Titanic. My second pick would be another topic that I am surprised Nancy hasn't dared tip her toe into yet, which is vampires. Now, vampires have so many possibilities. You could just fully commit and have it be set in Transylvania. But I think an even cooler option would be to set it in China and make it about Jiangxi, which are the Chinese hopping vampires. They don't get to shine enough in media, in my opinion, but there are a few caveats to this. First of all, I think they need to hire actual Chinese voice actors and not repeat the travesty of some of the voice acting in Shadow at the Water's Edge. Also, I think it would be really cool to have the story be a collaborative effort with a local detective, perhaps a counterpart to Nancy, another amateur teen girl sleuth. And I think that could also help to avoid a kind of white savior narrative where Nancy swoops in and just solves everyone's problems. But let's talk more about vampires, because I always want to talk more about vampires. They're my favorite monster, and like, the Nancy games have done werewolves before. It's time to let vampires shine. They've even done Frankensteins before vampires. Who does Frankensteins before vampires? Except maybe certain monster f***ers. And although I think it would be cool to lean into the spooky, scary vibes, I also think it would be a great opportunity to have another Nancy game with a really gothic atmosphere, kind of similar to Captive Curse. And again, because vampires are immortal, it would be a great excuse for a historical subplot. We know I love those in a Nancy game. Maybe there's a vampire that's been stalking generations of one family. They're cursed by this vampire for some action that they took, where a distant ancestor slighted this vampire back in the day. And I also just think China is a really interesting setting. There's a lot of stuff that Nancy could learn there. A lot of cool potential for like cooking mini games, because Chinese cuisine is really unique. I think a lot of cool things could be done with a vampire game. I'd be a sucker for a vampire game. My third pitch is about another thing that's close to my heart. And this one I'm envisioning a mystery about Nancy going on a camping trip and looking for a cryptid. I love cryptids. Another thing that I adore, along with vampires, so it makes sense that I'm just like, yeah, put cryptids in the game, more cryptids in the game. I know we've already had Caddy, but it's not enough, you know? There are two things in life you can never get enough of: chocolate and cryptids. I think a national park setting would be incredible for this game. Nancy has not yet gone to a national park, one of the most iconic locations in the States, no matter what park it is. Yosemite, Yellowstone, any of those other ones that I can't think of on the top of my head. I imagine she could be hunting for potentially Bigfoot, or perhaps even a lesser known cryptid, or even a cryptid that her interactive made up just for the game. A special Nancy Drew cryptid. And I love camping. That's another one of my great loves. Nancy has not yet gone camping. Let Nancy camp, I say. And I'm imagining the gameplay for this one, there could be a marshmallow roasting puzzle where you're getting like the perfect toasty color on your marshmallow, trying not to let it burn, trying not to be impatient, take it away from the fire too quickly. There could be a plant identification puzzle. I think that'd be so great and very educational. Nancy could go hiking. I love hiking. Maybe Bess and George could be there too. It's been so long since they've been in a game. It would be fun for them to just have like a gal's camping trip, you know? And like, imagine if Ranger Acres was a phone contact. Ranger Acres came back after all these years, and her interactive said, no, we have not forsaken Ranger Acres. And I always love a reoccurring character in a Nancy Drew game, especially when they come back as a surprise phone contact. I think that's super fun. But yeah, I think there's so much potential there for a really interesting, beautiful, educational game where Nancy looks for Bigfoot. You know, in the end, it's probably someone dressing up as Bigfoot for nefarious purposes, but that would be fun to investigate and find out. Okay, my next idea is a classic mystery setup, which is the murder mystery party that turns into an actual mystery. You know, someone actually gets murdered, because, say it with me, we need more murder. Again, it could be themed, maybe around like a historical time period, 1920s themed. Everyone's wearing like cool flapper gangster clothes, and you could gather a bunch of crime-related characters, such as in Last Train in Blue Moon Canyon, when Laura Gerard gathers a cast of relevant characters to help discover what's up on Jay Curley's train. The Hardy Boys could return. You could, even if you really wanted to, bring Pino Balducci back, drag him back out of hell, and it could be set in some isolated and atmospheric location, like a crumbling ruin on a little island in the sea, or a grand mansion in the middle of the country. And it could be like the mansion of a famous mystery writer who's hosted this party, and she's the one who's murdered. So much drama there. It'd be cool if it were themed around the 20s. If you start off the game without any technology or supplies, like Nancy doesn't have her phone because they were trying to make it an authentic experience, and one of your first puzzles is trying to get back your stuff, and it would place Nancy in a really interesting, like vulnerable, kind of scary position, because what's more frightening these days than being without your phone, you know? But I just love the murder mystery party as like a setup for an actual mystery. Like if that's the blurb of any mystery book out there, I will be guaranteed to buy it immediately. And I think it'd be really cool if the Nancy Drew games did their own take on that trope. And my next concept also involves the Hardy Boys. I guess I kind of lied earlier. There are 3 things you can't get enough of: chocolate, cryptids, and the Hardy Boys. I'm imagining a scenario in which the boys are missing, presumed dead, and Nancy has to investigate, find them, discover what happened to them. And maybe this is just because I really want to go to Switzerland at the moment, but I think Switzerland would be a cool setting for this game. Imagine they're on a skiing holiday. I know we had something similar in White Wolf, but ski vacation is one of my favorite genres of Nancy Drew books, so I can't get enough. It's just such a fun, cozy setting. Like, imagine sitting in a little ski chalet in the game, maybe like A-frame kind of chalet, or like a gingerbread-style classic alpine lodge, sitting by a fire, playing a fondue mini-game where you try to keep your bread on the fondue fork and not lose it in the cheese in the fondue pot. I don't know why all my mini-game ideas involve food on sticks, but maybe it's because that's like the best type of food. Food served to you on a stick. What could be better than that? I'm a simple girl. I love simple pleasures like food on a stick. There could be an epic and dramatic ski chase, and Nancy could find the Hardy Boys before the end of the game, because of course they're not dead. Heaven forbid they were actually dead. And they collaborate to solve a wider mystery of what is actually going on here in this nefarious ski lodge full of nefarious fondue. My next idea also involves a former detective who I'm very fond of, which is Deirdre. I'm imagining a situation in which Deirdre has set up her own detective agency in River Heights, because I think we get kind of glintings towards her wanted to be a detective in her own right. And imagine she calls Nancy back to River Heights on a case, perhaps like related to Nancy in some way, like maybe the culprit is replicating the mysteries she solved in some way. Or maybe, like in Alibi and Ashes, they're dressing up as her, or leaving behind some kind of memorabilia that relates to her, taunting her, calling her back home. I think this would be the perfect premise for an anniversary or special occasion setup game, because I think Alibi and Ashes was originally like a special anniversary game, and it would be a great opportunity to like catch up with the characters who appeared in Alibi and Ashes, learn how they're doing, what the status is Redacted still in jail? But it could also be an opportunity to visit new locations in River Heights that we didn't get to see before, could flesh out the town even more, and we could finally meet Hannah or Carson. At the very least, I think we need to meet Togo by this point. It's a travesty we haven't met Togo yet. And I think it would be a great completion of Deirdre's character arc that she's been on since Alibi and Ashes. So I don't think we've quite seen the completion of that arc yet, and I think it would be very satisfying for it to end kind of in the same place it started, but to see how much Deirdre has changed since then. I just love Deirdre. As you will have noticed, all of these ideas are all based around things I love, of course. You know something else I love? A good historical reenactment. Some of my fondest memories take place at historical reenactments. There's one that used to happen at a military base when I was growing up. It was like a medieval fair, but it was set in a World War II military base for some reason. And I saw one at Tintern Abbey on the hottest day of the year, but those historical reenactors were still out there reenacting history. It was great. So inspired by my personal memories, I'm thinking this could be like a medieval village reenactment, which Nancy is taking part in, set in the UK, probably Wales, because that's part of the UK that Nancy hasn't been to yet, and coincidentally where Tintern Abbey is. And you could see more environments of the UK. You're not just trapped inside a manor for the whole time like in Blackmore. And of course, an amazing opportunity for some edutainment and maybe even a historical subplot. I don't know what the mystery would be, and honestly, I don't really mind. I don't really care. Just give me a historical reenactment and I will eat it up like some kind of ancient cheese. Some butter fresh from the churn. Bread baked in an old-timey stone oven, you know? Okay, one last idea, which is Nancy is a camp counselor at a summer camp. Like, I know I've already had a camping concept on this list, but what can I say? I guess I'm just a granola girl at heart. Besides, this is a different kind of camp. And it could also be that other kind of camp, if you know what I mean. Camp with a capital C. But I think this could be such a fun setup. Like, imagine it's the day before the campers arrive, and the camp counselors are all setting up, and then sabotage happens. Something is sabotaged and puts the whole summer in jeopardy. But without the campers there, you could really narrow down the cast of characters. There could be a camp owner, other counselors, groundskeeper, things like that. And some of the gameplay could be like Nancy testing out activities that they plan to involve the campers in. And there could be a really fun interactive element, like maybe she's presented with a few different activities and gets to decide which one is the best to give to the campers to put on their schedule. There could be canoeing involved. Who doesn't love canoeing? And I'm thinking that the sabotage could all be a cover-up for some hidden treasure, because that is another classic Nancy Drew plotline. Those are some of my top potential dream Nancy Drew games that I'd love to see. But I do think that maybe the greatest potential Nancy Drew game of all is one that I haven't thought of. Maybe it's something you suggest in the comments. Maybe it's a future game that Her Interactive comes out with themselves. I am very psyched by the concept of Mystery of the Seven Keys. I think it's a very cool setting, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm off to sleep, perchance to dream of Nancy being attacked by Bigfoot.